I stood up to Joe Biden on the border.
Those others may fall into kind of the right-wing echo chamber. I don't hear a lot about the border here in Dallas.
They build that racist wall. My generation is the one that will tear it down. I want to really briefly talk about this racist wall. They build that wall. My generation will be the one that tears it down.
That was Colin Allred, who currently represents the 32nd District in Texas, attempting to now change his tune on the border because it's an election year where he is running against Ted Cruz. Personally, I have my own issues with Ted Cruz, but this is a pretty blatant example of someone trying to distance themselves from Biden's border policies, despite the fact that for the most part he's supported them up to this point. So regardless of whatever you may think of Ted Cruz, if you're a Texas voter, do not allow this Democrat to trick you into thinking he actually cares about the border. Here's the full ad that Allred put out and the one that they are also spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to currently promote.
Our border is broken, and so are our politics. To fix it, we've got to go after the cartels and fix the border. We've got to do it in a way that upholds our values. Values passed down from my grandfather, a customs officer in Brownsville. I stood up to Joe Biden on the border, and to extremists like Ted Cruz who prefer chaos to real solutions. I'm Colin Allred. I'm running for Senate to fix this problem.
So now let's compare those comments to his previous comments when it is not an election year. Most notably when he refers to the racist wall. And he said that talking about securing the border just occurs in a right-wing echo chamber.
I want to really briefly talk about this racist wall. Because the symbol of this country cannot be a fence with a barbed wire on top of it. It has to remain the Statue of Liberty. And I'll tell you what, if they build that wall, my generation will be the one that tears it down. Because we will not have this in this country. We will not have these walls.
It's not hard, Congressman, to talk to Republicans in Washington, D.C., and they say, look, we have got a very simple four-word approach to the midterms. 4 words: crime, inflation, wokeism, and the border, or border. Those are the 4 words. First question. How do you confront those 4 words, and what are your Democratic Party 4 words?
Yeah. Well, as I said, I think we have to, address what people are most concerned with. And I do think that inflation and the economy is where most people are. I think some of those others may fall into kind of the right-wing echo chamber. I don't hear a lot about the border here in Dallas, and I'm in a border state. Obviously we want to have comprehensive immigration reform. We want to try and, address some of these things, but it's not, I don't think it's a top of mind issue.
There's a new poll where Americans were asked whether or not they would support mass deportation of illegal immigrants.
CBS News polling recently found that 62% of Americans are in favor of a national program to deport all undocumented immigrants, all 11 million of them.
And here's what happened when Biden administration propagandists were asked about this poll.
What makes the White House confident that this plan is going to survive legal scrutiny and actually go into effect later this summer when so many other immigration plans from Trump, from Obama, have been struck down by the courts?
Well, I think it's the right thing to do. It's the legal thing to do, and it's the smart thing to do. What the president did 2 weeks ago was to secure the border, because we have to both secure the border and provide lawful pathways. That's what a balanced approach is all about. And he did that 2 weeks ago. Today, it's a very simple thing what he's doing, but it's very impactful.
And yet, Tom, a lot of voters seem to think it's not the smart thing to do. CBS News polling recently found that 62% of Americans are in favor of a national program to deport all undocumented immigrants, all 11 million of them. So how much support do you think there would be for the White House plan that was announced today?
I'd love to sit down with your polling team and show them how they've gotten this wrong.
Recent polling shows 62% of voters think all undocumented immigrants in the U.S. should be deported. That is up from 39% in 2016. That's a pretty sharp spike. What do you say to those Americans who think today's move is a step in the wrong direction and who are shouting things like "send them back" at Trump rallies?
Jim, let's take a look a few years back when we provided this relief for spouses of U.S. service members, men and women who have served our country in uniform and have been willing to risk their lives, and too many have indeed made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of our country. That is what we have expanded upon today.
Though smugglers are boasting, nothing at the border has changed. This smuggler advertising on WhatsApp his menu of available routes for migrants to cross illegally into the U.S.
So as you just saw from that report on NBC there, The border is still a mess despite what they continue to try and tell us. And according to Joe Biden, the only reason that Americans supported the deportation in that poll is because they are too stupid to understand what's going on.
The action I'm announcing today will go into effect later this summer. And by the way, just as was true for the protection of dreamers, the steps I'm taking today are overwhelmingly supported by the American people, no matter what the other team says. We can both secure the border and provide legal pathways to citizens. We have to acknowledge that the patience and goodwill of the American people is being tested by the fears of the border. They don't understand a lot of it.
Out of all of the Biden propagandists, Alejandro Mayorkas might be the most smug, condescending, and just bold-faced liar out of the bunch. And if you need more proof of that, here he is being asked about the ISIS members they allowed to come into the country and the woman that was just murdered by an illegal immigrant.
We had 8 individuals of concern as to whom we did not have derogatory information when first encountered at the border. We made determinations in the service of our law enforcement objectives, in the service of our highest priority to keep the American people safe and secure, to take immigration enforcement action, and that is indeed what we did.
I do want to ask you about the murder of this Maryland mother that has been in the news. It's gotten a lot of attention. She was killed last year. An undocumented immigrant was just arrested in her death last week. He's suspected of multiple crimes since he crossed the border illegally in early 2023. Obviously, we know that the studies show that undocumented immigrants don't commit more crimes statistically than native-born U.S. citizens. But what do you say to critics who blame the administration for allowing something like this to happen? Yeah, obviously, this is something that you hear in right-wing media all the time.
Jim, first and foremost, of course, our hearts break for the children, the family, the loved ones, the friends of the individual who was murdered, the woman, the mother. Jim, a criminal is responsible for the criminal act. The criminal who committed this heinous act should be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law, and forcefully so. That is my response.
Five men in the U.S. illegally were arrested Monday morning in northeast Missouri after a teenage girl was reported missing in Indiana. The suspects are accused of kidnapping the 14-year-old from her home. They were tracked down in Macon County. All 5 of these men are charged with second-degree kidnapping and first-degree endangering the welfare of a child.
Christian Inga was arraigned today in New York City on charges of sexually assaulting a 13-year-old girl after school last week in a shocking daylight attack. Police say the 25-year-old migrant from Ecuador approached 2 teens in the park at knife point. According to the criminal complaint, the suspect tied the boy and girl to one another, gagged them, then raped the girl before fleeing the scene.
Not only our Muslim communities, but African communities, Asian communities, Hispanic communities, and the wave still continues. It's not going to stop, nor should we want it to stop. An unrelenting stream of immigration, non-stop.